In the heart of Manhattan, where glass towers pierce the sky and wealth flows like the Hudson River, power and privilege often come with a price. Some use their influence to uplift others, while some wield it like a weapon. This is a story about dignity, justice, and an unexpected alliance that would change lives forever. What begins as a routine day in one of New York's most exclusive residential buildings quickly transforms into something far more profound. Sometimes the people we least expect become our greatest allies, and sometimes justice arrives wearing a $3,000 suit. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and if you love stories about justice and unexpected twists, hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next incredible tale. The morning sun struggled to penetrate the thick gray clouds hanging over Manhattan's Upper East Side. It was early March, and winter's grip hadn't quite loosened. Inside the marble-floored lobby of the Ashford, one of the city's most exclusive residential buildings, Maria Delgado pushed her cleaning cart toward the service elevator, her shoulders heavy with exhaustion. She had been awake since 4 in the morning, preparing breakfast for her 2 children before taking the subway from Queens. At 42, Maria's hands bore the evidence of 20 years of domestic work, calloused and reddened from countless hours of scrubbing, polishing, and cleaning the homes of people who rarely looked her in the eye. The service elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Maria stepped inside, pressing the button for the 23rd floor. She closed her eyes briefly, allowing herself a moment of rest as the elevator ascended. Today she would clean Penthouse C, home to the Whitmore family. Mrs. Victoria Whitmore was known among the building staff as particularly demanding, someone who measured her self-worth by how many orders she could bark at the people she considered beneath her. The elevator stopped, and Maria wheeled her cart down the plush hallway. The carpet here was so thick it muffled every sound. She knocked gently on the penthouse door, waiting exactly 3 seconds before using her key, as per protocol. "You're late!" Victoria Whitmore's voice cut through the air before Maria had fully entered. The woman stood in the foyer, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, wearing a cream-colored designer tracksuit that probably cost more than Maria's monthly rent. Maria glanced at her watch. It was exactly 8 o'clock, her scheduled arrival time. "Good morning, Mrs. Whitmore. I'm right on time." "Don't contradict me," Victoria snapped, her blue eyes cold. "I wanted you here at 7:30. Clearly you can't follow simple instructions." Maria bit her tongue. She had received no such instruction, but arguing would only make things worse. "I apologize. What would you like me to start with today?" Victoria gestured dismissively toward the expansive living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "The entire apartment needs deep cleaning. I'm hosting a charity luncheon tomorrow and everything must be perfect." "And Maria," she paused, examining her manicured nails. "Try not to break anything this time." Maria's jaw tightened. She had never broken anything in Victoria's home, but the woman seemed to enjoy inventing reasons for criticism. "Of course, Mrs. Whitmore." For the next 3 hours, Maria worked methodically through the penthouse. She polished the marble countertops in the kitchen, vacuumed the Persian rugs, and carefully dusted the collection of expensive art pieces that adorned every wall. Victoria appeared periodically, always finding something to criticize. The windows weren't clean enough. Maria had missed a spot on the floor. The pillows weren't arranged properly. Around 11 o'clock, as Maria was cleaning the guest bathroom, she heard voices in the living room. Victoria was speaking with someone, her tone completely different, warm and obsequious. "Mr. Al-Rashid, what an honor. I didn't realize you'd moved into the building. My husband Bradley and I would love to have you over for dinner sometime." "That's very kind," a male voice responded, polite but distant. The accent was refined, educated, carrying hints of both British boarding schools and Middle Eastern heritage. Maria continued her work, staying out of sight. She knew the routine. Staff were meant to be invisible, especially when residents were entertaining guests. "I'm actually here to speak with your housekeeper," the man said. "I believe she was recommended to my assistant." There was a pause. Maria could imagine Victoria's expression, the calculation happening behind those cold eyes. "Maria? Oh, I wouldn't recommend her, honestly. She's adequate for basic tasks. But if you're looking for someone reliable," Victoria's voice dripped with false concern. "Between you and me, I've had several issues with her work quality. Just this morning, she showed up late, and I've found her to be rather careless with valuable items." Maria's stomach dropped. She gripped the edge of the sink, feeling her face flush with anger and humiliation. Every word was a lie. But what could she do? Victoria Whitmore was a wealthy, well-connected woman. Maria was just a maid. "I see," the man responded, his tone unreadable. "May I speak with her anyway?" I prefer to form my own opinions. Of course, Victoria said tightly. Maria, come here, please. Maria set down her cleaning supplies and walked toward the living room, her heart pounding. She rounded the corner and saw Victoria standing next to a tall man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. He appeared to be in his late 30s, with dark hair, olive skin, and intelligent brown eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Maria, this is Mr. Al-Rashid. He wanted to speak with you about potential employment. Victoria's smile was razor thin. Karim Al-Rashid extended his hand to Maria, which surprised her. Wealthy clients rarely shook hands with their staff. His grip was firm, respectful. Ms. Delgado, pleased to meet you. I'm moving into the penthouse on the 25th floor, and I'm looking for someone to manage the household. Your name came highly recommended by the building manager. Before Maria could respond, Victoria laughed, a brittle sound. Oh, Richard in management. He's sweet, but he doesn't know the first thing about domestic staff quality. Mr. Al-Rashid, I really must warn you. Mrs. Whitmore, Karim interrupted gently but firmly. I appreciate your input, but I'd like to hear from Ms. Delgado directly. He turned to Maria. Would you be interested in discussing the position? Maria glanced at Victoria, whose face had gone rigid with barely suppressed anger. Taking a job with another resident might mean losing this position, and she couldn't afford that risk. I'm grateful for the opportunity, sir, but I have commitments here. I would pay 3 times whatever you're currently earning, Karim said calmly, plus health insurance for your entire family, paid vacation, and a signing bonus to cover any transition costs. Maria's breath caught. 3 times her current salary? That would change everything. She could finally afford to move her children to a better school district, maybe even save for their college education. But Victoria was already moving closer, her voice sharp. Mr. Al-Rashid, I really must insist. Maria is under contract with the building's management company. She can't simply leave to work privately for residents. There are rules. Actually, Maria said quietly, surprised by her own voice, my contract allows me to take private positions with 30 days' notice. Victoria's eyes flashed dangerously. Is that so? Well, let me be perfectly clear. She turned to Karim. This woman is a liar and a thief. Just last week, a diamond bracelet went missing from my jewelry box. I haven't reported it yet because I was giving her a chance to return it, but since she's showing such poor judgment... That's not true! Maria's voice cracked with emotion. I would never... Mrs. Whitmore, I have never stolen anything in my life. How dare you raise your voice to me in my own home? Victoria shrieked. She grabbed her phone from the nearby table. I'm calling building security right now. I want her removed immediately and blacklisted from every building in Manhattan. I have friends on every co-op board in this city. Maria felt her world collapsing. Her reputation was everything in this industry. If Victoria spread these lies, she'd never work again. Tears burned in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Mrs. Whitmore, Karim's voice cut through the chaos like steel wrapped in silk. I suggest you hang up that phone. Something in his tone made Victoria pause. Excuse me? Karim reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his own phone. He tapped the screen a few times, then held it up. I've been recording this entire conversation. Every word, including your false accusations and attempted blackmail. Victoria's face went pale, then flushed an angry red. You can't. That's illegal. Actually, New York is a one-party consent state. Karim replied calmly. I'm well within my rights to record, and I think the police would be very interested in hearing you make false theft accusations. That's a crime, Mrs. Whitmore. It's called filing a false report. I haven't filed anything yet, but you were about to. Karim's expression remained pleasant, but his eyes were cold. You were also about to commit defamation by spreading lies intended to destroy Ms. Delgado's career. As it happens, I have excellent lawyers. Very expensive. Very good lawyers who specialize in civil litigation. The room fell silent except for the ticking of an antique clock on the mantel. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Here's what's going to happen, Karim continued. Ms. Delgado is going to give her 30-day notice. During that time, you will treat her with the respect and professionalism she deserves. You will provide her with a glowing letter of recommendation, and you will never speak ill of her to anyone. If I hear even a whisper of slander, this recording goes to both the police and to every major news outlet in the city. I imagine your social circle would find it fascinating viewing. You can't do this, Victoria sputtered. I just did. Karim turned to Maria, his expression softening. Ms. Delgado, take the rest of the day off, paid. Come to my penthouse tomorrow morning at 9, and we'll discuss the position properly. If you decide to accept, I'll have a contract drawn up by my attorneys. Maria could barely process what was happening. Thank you, sir. Thank you. As she gathered her cart and prepared to leave, Victoria found her voice again, shaking with rage. "Do you know who my husband is? Do you know who I am? You'll regret this." Karim paused at the door. "Your husband is Bradley Whitmore, managing director at Thornton Financial. And you, Mrs. Whitmore, are someone who just made a very serious mistake." He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Have a pleasant day." Maria spent the rest of that day in a daze. On the subway ride home to Queens, she replayed the scene over and over, unable to quite believe it had happened. When she picked up her children from school, her daughter Sophia immediately noticed something different. "Mummy, why do you look so happy?" the 12-year-old asked, studying her mother's face. Maria hugged both her children tight. "Something good happened today, mija. Something very good." That evening, after putting her children to bed, Maria sat at her small kitchen table and researched Karim Al-Rashid on her laptop. What she found astonished her. He wasn't just wealthy, he was one of the wealthiest men in the world. His family owned oil interests across the Middle East, but Karim himself had made his fortune in technology and renewable energy. He'd graduated from Oxford and MIT, held multiple patents, and was known for his philanthropic work, particularly in education and women's rights initiatives. There were also tabloid articles, of course. Speculation about his personal life, photographs of him at charity galas and business conferences, but nothing that suggested scandal or impropriety. By all accounts, he was a serious businessman who valued privacy and avoided the party circuit that consumed so many of his wealthy peers. Maria closed her laptop, her mind spinning. Why had someone like that intervened for someone like her? It couldn't just be about hiring a housekeeper. Something else was at play, though. She couldn't imagine what. The next morning, Maria dressed in her best outfit, a simple navy dress that she reserved for job interviews and church. At exactly 9 o'clock, she knocked on the door of penthouse 25A. Karim answered himself, wearing jeans and a casual button-down shirt, his feet bare. "Miss Delgado, thank you for coming. Please, come in." The penthouse was stunning, but still sparsely furnished, clearly in the middle of being set up. Moving boxes were stacked in corners, and only the essential furniture had been arranged. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the Manhattan skyline. "Please sit," Karim gestured to a leather sofa. "Would you like coffee? Tea? Tea would be lovely, thank you." Maria sat carefully, her hands folded in her lap. Karim disappeared into the kitchen and returned a few minutes later with 2 cups of mint tea. He sat across from her, his manner relaxed but attentive. "First, I want to apologize for putting you in that situation yesterday. I didn't anticipate that Mrs. Whitmore would react so aggressively. You have nothing to apologize for, Mr. Al-Rashid. You saved my career, possibly my life. I don't know how to thank you. Call me Karim, please." He sipped his tea. "And I didn't save anything. I simply ensured that the truth was heard instead of lies." "Why?" The question escaped before Maria could stop it. "Why did you help me? You don't know me." Karim set down his cup, his expression thoughtful. "May I tell you a story, Maria?" She nodded. "I was born in Dubai, but my mother was not Arab. She was Filipino, a domestic worker who worked for my father's family. They fell in love, which was..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Complicated. My grandfather was furious. He told my father that marrying a servant would destroy the family's reputation." Maria listened intently, beginning to understand. "My father defied him. He married my mother, and they were very happy, despite the social consequences. My mother was brilliant, kind, and strong. She taught me that a person's worth has nothing to do with their occupation or social status, everything to do with their character." Karim's eyes were distant, remembering. "She passed away when I was 15. Cancer." "I'm so sorry," Maria said softly. "Thank you." Karim refocused on her. "When I heard Mrs. Whitmore speaking about you that way, lying so casually to destroy you, I saw my mother. I saw every person who has been dismissed, demeaned, or destroyed simply because they lacked the power to defend themselves, and I decided not to let it happen. Not in front of me. Not when I could stop it." Maria felt tears prick her eyes. "Your mother raised a good man. I try to honor her memory." Karim leaned forward. "Now, let's discuss this position properly. I'm looking for someone to manage this household, yes, but I'm also looking for someone I can trust. Someone with integrity. The job would include standard housekeeping, but also managing any staff I hire, handling household accounts, and coordinating with my assistant for when I entertain business associates. That's much more responsibility than I've had before," Maria admitted. "I'm not sure I'm qualified. You've been managing complex households for 20 years. You've dealt with difficult personalities, tight schedules, and high expectations. You raised 2 children as a single mother while working full-time. I'd say you're overqualified." Karim slid a folder across the coffee table. "This is the contract my lawyers prepared. The salary we discussed, plus benefits, is outlined there. Take it home. Review it. Have a lawyer look at it if you'd like. I'll pay for that consultation. No pressure. If it doesn't work for you, no hard feelings. Maria opened the folder with trembling hands. The salary figure made her gasp. It was more than 3 times her current income. It was 4 times. There was health insurance, dental, vision, a retirement plan with employer matching, 3 weeks of paid vacation, and sick leave. It was the kind of package that corporate executives received, not housekeepers. "This is too much," she whispered. "It's exactly what the position is worth," Karim corrected gently. "You'll be managing a multi-million-dollar property and coordinating significant events. That requires skill, discretion, and trust. Those things have value, Maria. Significant value." Maria looked up from the contract, her vision blurred with tears. "I accept." Karim smiled, a genuine warm expression that transformed his usually serious face. "Excellent. Welcome aboard. You'll start in 30 days, once you've completed your notice. In the meantime, feel free to come by whenever you'd like to get familiar with the space and start planning how you'd like things organized." As Maria prepared to leave, Karim called after her. "Oh, and Maria, Mrs. Whitmore will be providing that letter of recommendation. I've already spoken with her husband. He was quite cooperative once he understood the situation." Maria paused at the door. "What did you say to him?" "Let's just say I explained that his firm manages several investment accounts for my companies. He seemed very motivated to ensure his wife behaved appropriately." Karim's expression was neutral, but there was a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. Justice takes many forms. The next 30 days passed in a blur. Maria gave her notice to the building management company, who were disappointed to lose her but understanding. Victoria Whitmore avoided her entirely during her remaining cleaning sessions, communicating only through terse notes left on the kitchen counter. True to Karim's word, a glowing letter of recommendation appeared on Maria's last day, though it was clearly written through gritted teeth. Maria spent her free hours at Karim's penthouse, learning the space and planning organizational systems. Karim was often traveling for business, but when he was there, he treated her as a respected colleague, rather than a subordinate. He asked her opinions on everything from furniture placement to which caterer to use for an upcoming business dinner. "You have excellent taste," he told her one afternoon as they reviewed paint samples for the guest bedrooms. "Much better than mine. I tend toward the austere," Maria laughed. "My daughter would say I'm boring. She wants me to be more adventurous." "You have children?" Karim looked interested. "Tell me about them." And so, Maria did. She talked about Sophia's love of art and mathematics, her son Miguel's passion for soccer, and his dream of becoming a veterinarian. She talked about their struggles, the tiny apartment in Queens, the schools that were overcrowded and underfunded, her fears about their future. Karim listened with genuine attention. "Sophia is 12. She should be thinking about high school soon. The local high school is not great," Maria admitted. "I've been trying to save for private school, but have you heard of the Sterling Academy?" Karim asked. Maria nearly laughed. Sterling Academy was one of the most prestigious prep schools in New York City. Politicians, celebrities, and business titans sent their children there. "That's not for people like us. It's for talented students," Karim corrected, "which I suspect your daughter is. They have a robust financial aid program. With your new salary and their assistance, it might be possible. Let me make some calls." "Karim, no, I couldn't." "You're not asking me to," he said simply. "I'm offering. And you can say no, of course. But let me at least get you the information. What you do with it is your choice." 2 weeks later, Sophia was invited to interview at Sterling Academy. Maria had never seen her daughter so nervous or so excited. The interview went well, and a week after that, Sophia was accepted with a scholarship package that covered 90% of the tuition. Maria sat at her kitchen table and cried, overwhelmed with gratitude and disbelief at how much her life had changed in such a short time. By the time Maria officially started her new position, Karim's penthouse had been fully furnished and was running like clockwork. Maria had hired a small staff, a part-time assistant named Rosa, an occasional chef for large events, and a rotating team of specialized cleaners for deep maintenance. She managed them all with quiet efficiency, earning their respect and loyalty through fair treatment and clear communication. Karim entertained regularly, hosting business dinners, charity fundraisers, and cultural events. Maria coordinated everything, from menu planning to security logistics. She discovered she had a talent for management she'd never been able to exercise before. Each event ran flawlessly, and Karim's guests frequently complimented the seamless hospitality. One evening, 3 months into her employment, Karim was hosting a small dinner party for a group of investors interested in his renewable energy projects. Maria had arranged everything perfectly. The dining room glowed with candlelight, A carefully curated playlist of classical music filled the air, and the chef had prepared a spectacular meal featuring Middle Eastern and contemporary fusion cuisine. As Maria was overseeing the final preparations, she heard raised voices from the living room. She moved closer, concerned. "I'm telling you, Karim, this is a mistake," a man's voice boomed. "Renewable energy is a liberal fantasy. Oil is where the real money is. Always has been. Always will be." "I respectfully disagree, Thomas," Karim responded calmly. "The data clearly shows—" "Data!" Thomas interrupted. "Let me tell you about data. My company has been drilling for 40 years. We know what works. This green nonsense is just virtue signaling for the media." Maria peeked around the corner and saw a red-faced man in his 60s, gesturing aggressively with a whiskey glass. The other guests looked uncomfortable. "Thomas, you're entitled to your opinion," Karim said, his voice remaining level. "But this is neither the time nor place for this discussion. We're here to enjoy dinner and conversation." "Oh, of course, I forgot." Thomas's voice dripped with sarcasm. "The Arab prince wants everyone to be polite and civilized. Tell me, Karim, where'd you learn those fancy British manners? Oxford? Cambridge? Must be nice, buying your way into elite society." The room went completely silent. Maria saw Karim's jaw tighten, but his expression remained controlled. "I think it's time for you to leave," Karim said quietly. "I'm not finished." "Yes, you are." Karim stood. "This is my home, and you are no longer welcome in it." Thomas's face turned an even deeper shade of red. "You arrogant son of a—" Maria didn't think, she just acted. She strode into the room with the confidence of someone who had earned her place there. "Mr. Thomas, your car is waiting downstairs. I've already notified the valet. This way, please." Thomas spun toward her, fury in his eyes. "And who the hell are you?" "I'm Ms. Delgado, Mr. Al-Rashid's household manager, and you are leaving. Now." Maria's voice was steel wrapped in velvet, a tone she'd perfected over years of dealing with difficult clients. Something in her demeanor made Thomas hesitate. Perhaps it was the absolute certainty in her voice, or perhaps it was the way the other guests were now looking at him with open disapproval. He grabbed his jacket and stormed toward the door, muttering obscenities under his breath. Maria followed him to ensure he actually left, then returned to the living room. The remaining guests had erupted into conversation, apologizing to Karim for Thomas's behavior. Karim caught Maria's eye and mouthed, "Thank you." She nodded and slipped back toward the kitchen, but not before hearing one of the guests say, "That was handled beautifully, Karim. Your staff is exceptional." "Yes," Karim replied, and Maria could hear the smile in his voice. "They are." As autumn arrived and transformed the city into a canvas of gold and crimson, Maria's life had settled into a rhythm she'd never imagined possible. Her children were thriving. Sophia was excelling at Sterling Academy, already thinking about colleges. Miguel had joined a competitive soccer league and was talking about scholarship possibilities. They'd moved to a larger apartment in a safer neighborhood, and for the first time in her adult life, Maria wasn't constantly worried about money, but more than the financial stability, it was the respect that had changed her. Karim treated her as an equal, valuing her opinions and trusting her judgment. She sat in on meetings with event planners and designers, contributed ideas for his business entertaining, and managed significant budgets. She had business cards that read, "Estate Manager," and a voice that people listened to. One November evening, after an especially successful fundraiser for literacy programs, Karim asked Maria to stay for a moment after the other staff had left. "I wanted to thank you," he said, pouring 2 glasses of sparkling water and handing her one. "Tonight raised over $2 million for children's education programs. None of that happens without your work." Maria accepted the glass, touched by the acknowledgement. "It was a team effort. It was your vision and your execution," Karim insisted. "Maria, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." "Of course. Are you happy here? Is this work fulfilling for you?" Maria considered the question carefully. "I'm grateful every single day. This job has changed my life and my children's lives. But if I'm being completely honest, yes, I am happy. I feel valued in a way I never have before, like I'm using all of my abilities, not just a small fraction of them." Karim nodded, looking pleased. "Good. Because I want to offer you something more." He retrieved a folder from his desk and handed it to her. Inside was a proposal for a new venture, a domestic staff placement and training agency focused on treating workers with dignity and providing them with fair wages, benefits, and career advancement opportunities. "I want you to run it," Karim said simply. "I'll provide the startup capital and business infrastructure. You'll provide the vision and leadership. We'll recruit people from all backgrounds, provide them with professional training, and place them with clients who agree to our standards of treatment and compensation. Anyone who violates those standards gets blacklisted. No second chances. Maria stared at the proposal, her heart racing. This is an entire company. Yes, I'm offering you a partnership, Maria. 60-40 split, with you holding the 60% stake after 5 years of successful operation. In the meantime, we split profits 50-50 after expenses. Why would you do this? Maria asked, though she was beginning to understand. Because what happened to you in Victoria Whitmore's apartment happens every day to thousands of people. Domestic workers are some of the most exploited people in our economy. They're treated as invisible, disposable. They work without contracts, without benefits, without recourse when they're abused or cheated. Karim's expression was intense, passionate. My mother experienced that. She fought against it her whole life. This would be a way to honor her memory and actually change the system. But I can't do it without someone who understands that world from the inside, someone who has lived it and survived it, someone with your strength and integrity. Maria felt tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Take the proposal home. Review it with a lawyer, a financial advisor, whoever you need to consult. There's no rush. But Maria, he met her eyes, you deserve this opportunity. You've earned it 1,000 times over. Maria did think about it. She spent weeks reviewing the proposal, consulting with an attorney Karim recommended and paid for, talking with her children, and lying awake at night both terrified and exhilarated by the possibility. Sophia was the one who finally convinced her. Mommy, you always told us to reach for our dreams, to not let anyone tell us we're not good enough. Now you have to do the same thing. You have to believe in yourself the way you taught us to believe in ourselves. In January, Maria signed the partnership agreement. By March, Dignity Staffing Solutions had opened its first office in Midtown Manhattan. Maria hired a small team, including her old friend Carmen, who had been working as a nanny for 15 years and dreamed of something more. They started slowly, carefully vetting both workers and clients. Word spread quickly through New York's domestic worker community. Here was an agency that actually cared about them, that negotiated real contracts, that demanded respect and fair treatment. Workers began reaching out, sharing their stories, their hopes, their fears. The first major client was a retired judge who had been appalled by how her previous housekeepers had been treated by an old-school agency. Then came a technology executive who'd read about dignity staffing in a business magazine. Then a professor, a surgeon, a fashion designer. Within 6 months, they had placed 40 workers in stable, well-paying positions with contracts that protected their rights. Within a year, they had expanded to 2 offices and employed a staff of 15. Major media outlets ran stories about their model, and other cities began reaching out, asking how they could replicate it. Maria discovered she loved this work even more than managing Karim's household. Every worker she placed felt like a victory, a small act of justice in an unjust world. She hired trainers to teach professional skills, brought in lawyers to educate workers about their rights, and partnered with community colleges to offer pathways to certifications and degrees. One afternoon in June, almost exactly a year after that fateful morning in Victoria Whitmore's penthouse, Maria received an unexpected visitor at her office. The receptionist buzzed her with clear discomfort in her voice. "Ms. Delgado, there's a Victoria Whitmore here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important." Maria's stomach tightened. She hadn't seen or spoken to Victoria since that final day of work. "Send her in." Victoria entered the office, and Maria was struck by how different she looked. The woman who had always been so impeccably put together now seemed diminished somehow. Her designer clothes hung a bit loose. Her makeup was less perfect, and there was something uncertain in her eyes. "Maria," Victoria said stiffly, "thank you for seeing me." Maria gestured to a chair across from her desk. "What can I do for you, Mrs. Whitmore?" Victoria sat, her hands clutching her Hermes bag like a lifeline. For a long moment she said nothing, clearly struggling. Finally she spoke. "I need help." "What kind of help?" "I need a housekeeper. A real one. Someone who knows what they're doing." Victoria's voice was strained. "My husband. We're going through some financial difficulties. I had to let go of most of the staff. I'm trying to manage the apartment myself, but I don't know how. I've never—" She trailed off, embarrassed. Maria studied the woman across from her. There was no trace of the arrogance and cruelty from that morning. Just exhaustion and humiliation. "You tried to destroy my career," Maria said quietly. "You lied about me, accused me of theft, threatened to blacklist me from ever working again. Why would I help you?" Victoria flinched. "I don't have the right to ask. I know that, but I'm desperate. And your agency is the only one that treats workers fairly. Everyone else, they see that I can barely pay minimum wage and they send people who don't care. who don't show up. I need someone reliable. What happened to your husband's job? There was an investigation, Victoria said, her voice barely above a whisper. Financial irregularities. He wasn't charged with anything criminal, but the firm forced him out. We're living on a fraction of what we had before. We had to sell the Hamptons house, the boat, everything. Maria felt no satisfaction at this revelation, only a deep weariness. Mrs. Whitmore, I want to be clear about something. If I help you, the person we place in your home will be treated with respect and dignity. They will have a contract that you will honor. They will be paid a living wage plus benefits. If you violate their rights in any way, they will report it to me, and I will ensure they are compensated and removed from your home immediately. And you will be blacklisted from every reputable staffing agency in this city. Do you understand? Victoria nodded, tears now streaming down her perfectly made-up face. I understand. And Maria, I need you to know, what I did to you was unforgivable. I was cruel and dishonest because I could be, because I had power and you didn't. And I enjoyed exercising that power. I was a terrible person. Was? Maria asked pointedly. Victoria corrected. I am a terrible person, but I'm trying to be better. Losing everything. It's taught me things I should have learned a long time ago. Maria considered this. Every instinct told her to refuse, to send Victoria away, to let her experience the kind of powerlessness she'd once inflicted on others. But that wasn't who Maria was, and it wasn't what dignity staffing stood for. I'll assign someone to your case, Maria said finally. We'll interview you properly, assess your needs and your budget, and find someone who's a good fit. But Mrs. Whitmore, this is a second chance. Probably the last one you'll get. Don't waste it. Victoria stood, clutching her bag. Thank you. I know I don't deserve it. No, Maria agreed. You don't. But everyone deserves the chance to do better, to be better. The question is whether you'll take it. After Victoria left, Maria sat at her desk for a long time, staring out the window at the Manhattan skyline. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, exhausted and powerless, pushing a cleaning cart through wealthy people's homes. She thought about Karim's mother, a domestic worker who had loved a man above her station and paid the price in social isolation. She thought about every worker who had walked through Dignity Staffing's doors, carrying stories of exploitation and dreams of something better. Her phone buzzed, a text from Karim. Dinner tonight? I have news. Maria smiled and texted back her confirmation. Whatever the news was, she knew it would be something meaningful. Karim didn't do small talk or casual updates. That evening, Maria arrived at the penthouse to find Karim in an unusually good mood. He'd cooked dinner himself, a spread of Middle Eastern dishes that filled the apartment with the scent of cardamom, saffron, and grilled lamb. You cooked? Maria laughed as she entered the kitchen. I didn't know you knew how. My mother taught me, Karim said, plating the food with surprising skill. She insisted I learn. She said a man who can't feed himself is still a child, no matter how old he is. They ate in the dining room, the city lights twinkling below them like earthbound stars. The food was delicious, and Maria told him so. So what's your news? She asked, as they finished the main course. Karim set down his fork, his expression turning serious. I've been offered a position, United Nations Special Envoy for Global Labor Rights. It would mean dividing my time between New York and Geneva and traveling extensively to countries with significant labor rights violations. Karim, that's incredible, Maria exclaimed. You have to accept. I wanted to talk to you first, he said. It would mean I'm away from New York more often. I'd need to hire someone else to manage the penthouse when I'm gone. I know we have our arrangement. Are you worried I'd be upset? Maria interrupted. Karim, this is what you've been working toward. Everything you've done, all your advocacy work. This is the culmination of it. Of course you should accept. I'm offering you this apartment, Karim said. Not to buy, I mean to use. I'll keep a bedroom for when I'm in the city, but the rest would be yours. You and your children. Sophia shouldn't be taking the subway an hour each way to Sterling Academy. Miguel should have space to grow. You should have a home that reflects how far you've come. Maria stared at him, speechless. I can't. That's too much. It's practical, Karim countered. The apartment would otherwise sit empty most of the year. I'd rather it be lived in, cared for. And honestly, Maria, you've become one of my closest friends. I trust you completely. This feels right. What about the business? Maria asked, her mind spinning. Dignity Staffing continues as planned. You're the majority stakeholder, remember. You run it. I'm just the investor and occasional advisor. That doesn't change. Karim leaned forward. Maria, when I met you in Victoria Whitmore's penthouse, I saw someone with immense strength and dignity being crushed by a cruel system. I'm not your savior. I never was. I just removed an obstacle so you could show the world who you really are. Everything you've accomplished since then, that's all you. Your vision, your leadership, your courage. I couldn't have done any of it without you, Maria said softly. Maybe not. We'll never know. Karim smiled. But here's what I do know. You took a chance I offered you and built something extraordinary. You've helped hundreds of people and inspired thousands more. You've proven that business can be profitable and ethical, that success doesn't require exploitation. That matters, Maria. It matters more than you know. Maria felt tears threatening again. She'd cried more in the past year than in the previous 20 combined. But these were different tears, born of gratitude and wonder at how completely her life had transformed. I accept, she said. The apartment, I mean. On one condition. Name it. You let me cook you dinner every time you're in New York. Deal? Karim laughed, extending his hand. Deal. The move happened over the course of a month. Sophia and Miguel were stunned when Maria told them they'd be living in a penthouse on the Upper East Side. Miguel thought she was joking until she showed them the apartment. This is bigger than our entire building in Queens, Sophia breathed, walking from room to room with wide eyes. This is your room, Maria told her daughter, opening the door to a spacious bedroom with built-in bookshelves and a window seat overlooking Central Park. Sophia burst into tears. Mommy, is this real? Is this really our life now? Maria held her daughter close. It's real, mija, and you deserve every bit of it. You and your brother both. Miguel was already claiming the second bedroom, measuring the wall space for his soccer posters, and planning where his trophies would go. Maria watched her children exploring their new home, their faces alight with joy and disbelief, and she thought about the morning a year ago when she'd pushed that cleaning cart into Victoria Whitmore's penthouse. She'd been so tired that morning, tired in her bones, in her soul, tired of being invisible, of being dismissed, of working herself to exhaustion for people who saw her as little more than a piece of furniture. She'd been stuck in that life with no way out, no hope of anything better. And then Karim Al-Rashid had walked in and changed everything. Not because he'd given her money, though that had certainly helped, but because he'd seen her, really seen her. He'd recognized her dignity and worth when someone was actively trying to destroy both. He'd offered her not just a job, but respect. Not just opportunity, but belief in her potential. But the real gift, Maria realized, was that he'd shown her how to see herself differently. To recognize that her years of invisible labor had built real skills, that her resilience had forged real strength, that her dreams were not foolish fantasies, but achievable goals. 3 months after moving into the penthouse, Maria received an invitation to speak at a national conference on labor rights in Washington, D.C. The organizers had heard about Dignity Staffing's model and wanted her to present it as a case study for ethical business practices. She almost declined. Public speaking terrified her, and she didn't feel qualified to address a room full of policy experts and activists. But Sophia found the invitation and wouldn't let her mother refuse. You have to go, Mommy, her daughter insisted. You have something important to say. People need to hear it. So Maria went. She stood on that stage in a conference hall filled with hundreds of people, her hands shaking as she gripped the podium, and she told her story. She talked about being a domestic worker, about the exploitation and invisibility, about that morning with Victoria Whitmore and Karim's intervention. She talked about how Dignity Staffing had grown from an idea to a reality, about the workers they'd helped and the lives they'd changed. The system that exploits domestic workers isn't just cruel, she said, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. It's wasteful. It takes talented, hard-working people and treats them as disposable. It denies them opportunities to grow, to contribute more, to reach their potential. When we change that system, when we treat workers with dignity and invest in their development, everyone benefits. The workers, the clients, the economy, society as a whole. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. People stood. Maria saw tears on faces throughout the audience. Afterward, dozens of people approached her, wanting to learn more, to bring the model to their cities, to partner with Dignity Staffing on expansion. A woman in her 60s, well-dressed and dignified, waited until the crowd had thinned before approaching. Ms. Delgado, I'm Senator Patricia Chen from California. I wonder if you'd be willing to testify before a Senate committee I chair. We're drafting legislation on domestic worker protections, and your expertise would be invaluable. Maria, who had cleaned Senator Chen's toilets at a political fundraiser years ago and been yelled at for using the wrong cleaning product, simply nodded. I'd be honored, Senator. As winter gave way to spring again, marking 2 years since that transformative morning, Maria stood in Dignity Staffing's newest office, their 5th location. They now operated in New York, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Chicago, and Miami, with plans to expand to 10 more cities within the year. They'd placed over 800 workers in stable, well-paying positions. They'd partnered with community colleges in 4 states to offer training programs. They'd lobbied successfully for stronger domestic worker protections in 3 state legislatures. Carmen, now Dignity Staffing's chief operating officer, joined Maria at the window overlooking the busy street below. "Remember when this was just an idea?" Carmen said. "When we were terrified no one would take us seriously. I remember thinking we'd fail within 6 months," Maria admitted. "That we were crazy to think we could change anything. And now look at us." Carmen gestured at the bustling office behind them, full of staff members coordinating placements, conducting training sessions, and counseling workers on their rights. "We're changing an entire industry." Maria's phone rang. Karim, calling from Geneva. "I have some people here who want to meet you," he said without preamble. "Representatives from the International Labor Organization. They're interested in your model for a global initiative on domestic worker rights. Can you come to Geneva next month?" "Yes," Maria said without hesitation. "Absolutely yes." After hanging up, she turned back to the window, watching the city move below her. Somewhere in that sea of people were domestic workers heading to their jobs, carrying the weight of invisibility and undervaluation that she had once carried. But the tide was turning, slowly, incrementally, but undeniably. One evening a week later, Maria was working late at the penthouse when her doorbell rang. She opened it to find an unexpected visitor, Victoria Whitmore. "I'm sorry to come unannounced," Victoria said, holding a manila envelope, "but I wanted to give you this personally." Maria invited her in, noticing how much more Victoria had changed in the months since they'd last met. She seemed softer somehow, less brittle. "Rosa has been wonderful," Victoria said, referring to the worker Dignity Staffing had placed with her. "She's patient with me when I don't know how to do things. She's teaching me. I'm glad it's working out," Maria said genuinely. Victoria handed her the envelope. "I've started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping domestic violence survivors learn job skills so they can support themselves. Many of them are looking for work in housekeeping, childcare, that kind of thing. I thought maybe Dignity Staffing could partner with the shelter. Give these women a chance." Maria opened the envelope and found a detailed proposal, including budget projections and partnership structures. It was thoughtful, thorough, and practical. "Victoria, this is excellent work," Maria said, surprised and impressed. "I have a lot to make up for," Victoria said quietly. "I can't undo the past, but I can try to do better going forward. Rosa told me about everything you're doing, about how you're changing the industry. I want to be part of that, if you'll let me." Maria studied the woman before her, seeing genuine remorse and determination. "Let me review this with my team. But Victoria, I think this could work. Thank you for bringing it to us." As Victoria left, Maria thought about the circular nature of justice, how pain could become purpose, how cruelty could give birth to compassion. Victoria Whitmore would never fully understand what her behavior had cost Maria, the fear and humiliation of that morning. But perhaps she was learning, slowly, what it meant to see people clearly, to value their humanity. On a warm Saturday in June, exactly 2 years after that fateful morning, Karim was back in New York for a rare extended visit. He'd invited Maria and her children to join him for dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. Sophia, now 14 and thriving at Sterling Academy, had been accepted into a summer program at MIT for gifted mathematics students. Miguel, 12 and already taller than his mother, had been scouted by a prestigious soccer academy. Both children glowed with confidence and possibility. As they ate and laughed together, watching the sun set over Manhattan's endless skyline, Karim raised his glass. "A toast," he said, "to Maria, who took a chance and changed the world, to Sophia and Miguel, who inspire us with their brilliance and determination, and to the truth that dignity is not given, it's recognized. And when we recognize it in each other, when we honor it and protect it, remarkable things become possible." They clinked glasses, even Miguel with his sparkling cider. "I have one more piece of news," Karim said, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "The UN position is being expanded. Instead of a special envoy, they're creating an entire agency focused on global labor rights, and they've asked me to recommend someone to run it. Someone with real-world experience. Someone who understands both the grassroots reality and the big-picture strategy. Someone who has proven they can build something from nothing and inspire others to follow." Maria's eyes widened. "Karim, no. I can't leave Dignity Staffing. I can't leave." "You wouldn't be leaving," he interrupted. "You'd be expanding, taking everything you've learned and applying it globally. Carmen can run day-to-day operations of Dignity Staffing. You've built an incredible team. They're ready. The question is, are you? Maria looked at her children, who were watching her with expressions that mixed pride and excitement. She thought about the domestic workers she'd met at the conference in D.C., in Los Angeles, in Miami. She thought about all the people around the world still pushing cleaning carts through wealthy people's homes. Still invisible, still unvalued. When would it start? She asked. Karim smiled, knowing her answer. September. You'd be based in Geneva but travel extensively. The salary would be substantial, and they'd provide housing, education for the children, everything you'd need. Sophia grabbed her mother's hand. Mommy, you have to do it. This is everything you've worked for. Miguel nodded vigorously. You'd be helping people all over the world. That's so cool. Maria felt tears in her eyes again, but she was laughing too. I never imagined my life could be like this. 2 years ago I was invisible. Now I'm going to work for the United Nations. You were never invisible, Karim said gently. The rest of us were just blind. But once we learned to see, once we recognized what was always there, it changed everything. That's the real lesson in all of this, Maria. You didn't become someone new. You just became fully yourself. As the evening ended and they prepared to leave, Maria looked out over the city one last time from the rooftop. Somewhere down there, in apartments and penthouses across Manhattan, domestic workers were finishing their shifts. Some were treated with respect and dignity, many were not. But the tide was turning, and she was part of that change. She thought about that morning 2 years ago, standing in Victoria Whitmore's penthouse, feeling powerless and afraid. She thought about Karim walking in, recording that conversation, refusing to let injustice happen in front of him. She thought about every choice she'd made since then, every risk she'd taken, every moment of doubt and determination. The most shocking thing wasn't that an Arab millionaire had defended a maid. The most shocking thing was that it had been necessary at all, that in a city full of intelligent, sophisticated people, basic human dignity was so rare that one act of decency had been enough to change everything. But it had changed everything, and now, standing on this rooftop with her children and her friend, preparing to take her fight for dignity and justice global, Maria Delgado understood something profound. We are all just one moment away from transformation, one person away from recognition, one choice away from becoming who we were always meant to be. The question wasn't whether she was ready for Geneva, for the United Nations, for a global stage. The question was whether the world was ready for what she had to say. And if it wasn't, she'd make it ready. One worker, one story, one act of justice at a time. Because dignity wasn't just something to be defended. It was something to be demanded, claimed, and built into the very foundations of how we treat each other. And that work, Maria knew, was never finished. It just evolved, expanded, and continued. As they left the restaurant and headed home through the warm summer night, Sophia linked her arm through her mother's. I'm proud of you, Mommy, she said softly. Maria pulled her daughter close. I'm proud of us, she corrected. We did this together, all of us. And as the city lights sparkled around them, Maria Delgado, former maid, current CEO, and future UN agency director, smiled. Because the most shocking thing of all wasn't where she'd come from or where she was going. It was that she'd always had the strength to make the journey. She'd just needed someone to believe in her first, so she could learn to believe in herself.